In this video, I would like to cover making complex sweeps that work together. In this case, we'll make a header or an exhaust manifold, whichever you'd like to call it. And we'll go through how to do these complex sweeps in FreeCAD and the general process of adding some finishing touches to it. So let's work on that today. And before we get started, I'd also like to mention today's sponsor, Brilliant.org. I've had an itch to learn Python. The first place I went is Brilliant. I've really enjoyed picking up new things, and since FreeCAD has so much Python in it, I know learning the principle from Brilliant will make my FreeCAD experience even more rewarding. Brilliant is simply my favorite way to learn math, science, and computer science interactively. If you're a visual learner like I am, I think it will be your favorite too. Learning doesn't have to be a pain. Learning a little every day snowballs into all kinds of opportunities in the future. This is college-level content you can access right now, and you don't need a fortune in order to learn new, relevant career skills. But I think more importantly, Brilliant addresses the thought process behind problems, helping you think things through more effectively. That is crucial because understanding the science behind a problem is necessary to solve it. More than ever, I think the world needs problem solvers, and Brilliant is a great way to start with thousands of lessons on a wide variety of topics and exclusive new content added every month. If this is alluring to you, please get started for free by visiting brilliant.org/jokoengineeringhelp or click the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. So moving right along, let's open up a new unnamed part document here. I'm going to go from part design. I really like the workflow of that bench. And we'll grab how about the YZ plane? I'll start by making this nice slot shape. And you'll notice my keyboard monitor down here if you need to check any hotkeys that I use. We're going to do H for horizontal between these points. We'll say S for symmetric, and of course we choose our 2 points and then the point of symmetry. And that will ensure that our slot shape is always symmetric around our vertical axis. Next, we'll add some dimensions here. We'll say L for horizontal distance. We're going to say 400 millimeters for that. We're going to say R for radius, and that will be, let's give this a radius of 38 millimeters. That should be about right. And then we'll add some circles here, 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 and here, apparently of various sizes. I'll select each of those. And we'll say E for equal, R for radius, or diameter. We'll give it a diameter of 30 millimeters. And that seems about right. So then we'll say L for horizontal distance, and we'll go about 110. Now, where else are we not constrained? Looks like we just need to be symmetric. So again, we'll choose the S key and say point, point, and point of symmetry. And we should be good to go. So we'll close that. We'll choose pad. I like to call it extrude. That's what everyone else seems to call it. And then we will, let's start working on our runners, which is the complex sweep portion of this. Now, it can be challenging to do all of these sweeps in one go. So, whenever anything is too complicated to do in parametric CAD, it usually helps to break it down into smaller pieces. So let's not make one big 3D sweep path, but more than one 2D sweep path that we put together to make 3D. So let's start that with creating a new sketch. I'll go on the XY plane, and I'll simply edge import this little edge right here into our sketch. We'll add a line. Notice that's a horizontal line. We'll again use the symmetric command. We'll select actually this edge, and that edge, and that will hold our line symmetric in between these 2 points, which is exactly what we want. And then I'll go with L to create a horizontal distance. We'll give this line a dimension. Let's go with 99 millimeters. All right, that's a fun number. We'll select this arc in this line. We're going to say T for tangent. We're going to say R for radius. For some reason, R has been messing with my view, and I haven't looked into it yet, but I've never seen that behavior before. So I'm going to say 50.8. And then H for horizontal on those, and one more line now. We can also use M to sketch this out, so we'll plan on showing that as well. So we'll go from the origin to the tip of this line. We're going to say I, and we're going to say 1500 or 1.5 meters, right? So we're going too long, but I'm planning on trimming that all down at some point when I can visualize it better. So we'll close that. And let's select this face and create a sketch. And as you can tell, we're looking at it this way. So from our sketch, let me get a line here. In fact, let's select multi-line. Let's do the M thing. And so I hit M, 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 and there I've got a tangent arc, and then I've got another line. So that makes sketching out profiles a little bit easier. We'll grab angle. And between these two, we're going to say 45 degrees. And then let's take this. We'll give this a vertical dimension by hitting the I key, and we're going to say 250 millimeters down. Oh, looks like I hit the wrong key, though. I hit L instead of I. Still getting used to all these new hotkeys in FreeCAD, and honestly, I prefer the old ones. But things change. What can I do about it? Next, we'll import this circular profile here, and we'll select these points, and we'll select this button up here to merge the points. Now we're going to say horizontal. Now we're going to say R, and we'll give this a radius of something like 50.8. And then from here to here, we'll go L and say 1500 and close, right? So now we've got these two 2D sketches. Now let's talk about turning them into 3D sweep paths. There's one option, right? If we go to the curves workbench, and if you don't have the curves workbench, simply go to your add-on manager and find curves on this list. There's the curves workbench. And so then you just click install and then restart FreeCAD, and curves will show up right here. And you will be able to have something that's kind of cool, right? We hold control, we select our two sketches, and then on this yellow and blue, I'm going to call it the Ukraine button since there's so much attention on Ukraine right now. We'll hit the Ukraine button, and it develops a 3D profile based on the two sketches that we've made. And that is the profile that we want for our runner pipe. Now, that's an option. I haven't had the best of luck integrating it into my other workflows, and so I'm going to show also a more manual way of doing it. And it's a little bit harder to do, I think, but not bad. And I think I get an easier integration into other workflows, so I'm going to show how to do that as well. So if I don't bookmark my timeline, remind me to, because I'm intending on bookmarking it so that you all can get this information a little bit faster. But let's head over to the part workbench. Let's go to the history tree. We'll go to sketch 1. We'll select extrude. Let's give this a distance of 1,000. We're going to go symmetric and say OK, right? So we've extruded this 1 meter, mid-plane, and we have an infinitely thin surface. So this is not solid, nor is what we're looking at the end product of what we want. Surfaces are just a means to get to an end. So let's select sketch 2. We'll do the same thing, extrude at a distance of 1,000. We're going to go symmetric and say OK. So we can't really extrude these too long, but we can extrude these too short. We want both surfaces to be intersecting with each other all the way throughout their distance. And what we're going to do is hold control and select our two surfaces, and we're going to say cut. And when we cut, right, it uses one surface as a cutting tool and gets rid of it completely, and the other surface is left with the cut mark. And notice we have this 3D cut line going through the whole surface, and that is basically our sweep path that we want to have. So that's another way of doing it, and that's going to be my preferred way for this video, is to use surfacing. I'll hide my surface with my spacebar, and this is where the annotated chapters come in, because I'm going to be sketching out all of these other ones, and that might be tedious for people who aren't following along, so feel free to skip forward if this isn't something that you wish to do. But let's start sketching again from the part design. And we'll sketch on this face. And if I get a little bit disorientated as to which hole I just generated a path for, right, I can show my sketches with the spacebar, and I can get a good sense of how this part is oriented based on my previous work. So we'll reset our view. We'll click on left here. Let's import this circle here. And this time, let's give this a 65-degree angle. So say 65. And then, you know, I should have done my multi-line, so I could have done this all in one. But I don't know, doing this on camera is a little bit strange, because I often do things different than I normally would, because people often will get mad if I if I use too many shortcuts or things like that. And then other people tell me I don't use the shortcuts and that I should, so it's kind of a no-win situation when you do these kinds of things publicly here. Let's hit the I for vertical dimension. We're going to say 250. And something, it didn't like something about that. Let me try that one more time. I, 250, oh, negative 250. Just a little orientation thing going on. So we're going to say R for radius. We're going to say 55. And then how much distance do I want to give this line? Well, of course, we'll do the same as the others. We're going to say L for horizontal dimension and negative 1500, or 1.5 meters. And of course, we'll trim that down later on. So we're going to close that. The other thing is, depending on your design intent, it is generally going to be advisable to import elements from the other sketch to create your dimensions. So like I just typed in negative 1500, for instance, and the negative 250, right? If I just backtrack a little bit, just in case someone watching this is unfamiliar with design intent, what I certainly can do is import this line here. We'll re-add our arc, make sure it's tangent with the T key. We'll make sure that this center point and this end point is vertical with the V key. And then instead of saying negative 250, I can just say H for horizontal. And now we're constrained the way that we want to be. We'll go R for radius. We'll make sure that we're at 55 here. And then I add a horizontal line. I can take this point and this end point, make sure they're vertical. And what I've done is, now if my sketch over here changes, the updates will automatically propagate to this other sketch. So there's less updating that you have to do overall, right? That's called design intent. A lot of upsides, very few downsides. It's a great way to go. So that's why it's advisable to, when sketching, use as few dimensions as you can get away with. Let's do some more sketches now. We'll go to the YX plane. We'll import an edge. We'll go with the S key. Select 2 points and then our point of symmetry. Nope, that didn't seem to be recognized. We'll try it one more time, right? Endpoint, endpoint, there we go. So now this point will always be held in between these other 2 points the way that we wish. We'll go to the top. And for this, I would say L. We'll give this a distance of 150. And of course, I could have used my M trick as well. Go horizontal. We'll give this a radius of 55. And there we are. I also can import this line. I can choose endpoint, endpoint horizontal. And then where are we not constrained? Looks like we just need to be tangent here. T for tangent, fully constrained. All right, so we're going to close that. So we've got two of our runners done. Now let's get a little bit more interesting with this third one. So this third one, I want to sketch out a profile on this face to where I would import my edge here. And this time, to fit everything together to go for something that is kind of equal length, I will actually have this go the other angle slightly. You know what? In fact, let's use polyline. This is a great example for polyline, right? So we'll use our polyline tool. There, and there. And then we'll make sure that these points are vertical. Let's give this an angle. Of course, the A key is no longer, maybe capital A? No? Okay. The A key no longer seems to work for creating an angle, so still getting used to these hotkeys. Let's go with 75 degrees. We're going to say R, which seems to reset my view every time I hit it, but it also activates radius. We're going to give this a radius of 70. We'll import. Oh, actually, let's import the line here. We'll give this with I. We'll give this a dimension of negative 195. So we're going a bit higher now. And then we'll select this endpoint and this endpoint. We'll say V for vertical. So we'll close that. So you'll notice now that we are going this way. And if I were to go from the top down and try to draw a 3D profile to meet that, that overlap can cause some problems. Maybe it's not impossible, but it's going to cause some complications. And so it's a lot easier to sketch from a different viewpoint. So I would like to sketch from this plane instead of a plane that's looking down from this way. And with the sketch coming this way, it'll simplify what we're trying to do. So I've got all my sketches coming down this way, so I know that I want to come out from the exhaust manifold and come down this way. So we'll start from the origin. We'll go horizontal. In fact, why don't we do polyline, right? Makes life so easy. Start from the origin here, and and then we'll make sure that this line is vertical with the V key. We'll give this a radius with the R key. And it always resets my view in a weird way when I hit the R key. Not sure. Haven't looked into that yet. 55. I'm sure it's something that I already should know. And then we'll say L. I need to go to the other side so that this point is selectable. We'll say L, and we'll make that negative 150. And then there's our header. We want this third one in to be kind of on the higher level. So I will import kind of this upper horizontal line and make it horizontal to that. Again, design intent so we don't give it a harder dimension. Horizontal, and that way our changes are captured. So we've done that. Again, starts to look a little bit different. Now, this can get confusing with all of these sketches, and so it is reasonable to right-click and say something like runner 1, sketch 1, and then runner 2, sketch 2, right, and so on and so forth. Not every good modeler will rename items in their tree, but no bad modelers seem to ever rename items in their tree. So that should tell you, it's a good practice to rename stuff. I don't do it as often as I should, so maybe I don't have the claim of not being a bad modeler, but hopefully I do all right. Now let's highlight this front face, create another sketch. As usual, we'll import that center. We'll make another line. Let's go here. I like doing things kind of one item at a time, though sometimes it is faster to use polyline and MMM and all of that. So I guess it's down to personal preference. We're going to say angle. And we'll give this one an even different still angle. Let's go with 40 degrees in the other direction. Let's also give this R for radius, 70 degrees. Again, seems to always reset my view when I go to radius, so haven't figured that one out. We also want to go to kind of an upper level here. So import this line. And let's go with coincident, this point on this line. Fully defined so far. I'll simply draw a line between two fully defined points. There we have the distance for that runner. Lastly, finally, our last sketch, yay! We'll make a sketch there. Again, starting at our origin here. We'll go with R. I want this radius to be 55 millimeters. And we want to go on this outer line here. So there, we'll simply say V for vertical. We also want to make sure that we're tangent, so we're going to say T for tangent there. We're going to say H for horizontal, so that ends up on vertical. I don't think that attached right, so redraw that. And we'll go to, how about the same height? We'll import that, and then just get these to be horizontal. Again, design intent, so I'm not putting dimensions there where they don't really need to be. Okay, so we've got one cut done. Let's do the rest, and this is where it seems to get pretty repetitive. I'll hide the two sketches that we've already done. So we're going to go here, we're going to say part workbench, extrude, 1000 just as before, symmetric, okay. Go to the next sketch, 1000, symmetric, okay. And then I'll highlight extrude, extrude, make a cut. And then there's the 3D profile for the next sketch. I'll go ahead and hide that. Go to this. Next sketch, distance of 1000 or 1 meter, symmetric, apply, close, and then we'll go to the next one, extrude, distance of 1 meter, symmetric, okay. Of course, that is a bit short. We can edit that if we want to. Maybe I'll increase it by a factor of 10, and that should work. So next, we'll highlight extrude, extrude, cut, and there's our next sweep profile. I'll go ahead and hide that one because our viewport is getting kind of busy. And these are our last two, right? So I highlight this, distance of 1000, symmetric, okay. And then we'll highlight this one. Again, it looks like we need a bit longer, so we'll increase that by a factor of 10. Symmetric, So we're going 10 meters because we can't really go too long, but we can go too short. We're going to highlight both of these, cut, and there's the profile for our last one. So now the question is, when we go to sweep, it's like, great, we have these broken surfaces. How does that help us with actually getting a sweep path? And of course, it's always my preference to work in part design. I think the workflow is the best. So how do we do this, especially in part design? We'll start off by making sure that our body is active, right? We double click on it, double click again. When the text is bold, that's our active body, which we want. So I'm going to create a, let's go with the sub-object. First off, before I create that, right, I'll go to cut, show that with my space bar. Then I'm just going to hold Control and highlight each of these elements that are cut into our surface. And then from part design, we'll go into a sub-object, and you'll see that little yellowish line that shows up. So now we can hide our surface, and we have a binder. Let's do that with another surface, or another cut, right? So I show my next one with the space bar, hold Control. Some of these elements get pretty small, but I think we got it there. Let's go to sub-object, and we've imported that profile. So you can start to see how we're building the paths off of these cut surfaces. I think it's quite nice. My daily driver is a stick shift, and sometimes I like having this sort of manual, high control stick shift type approach to CAD as well. So if you don't like my style, don't blame me, blame transmissions, I guess. And then we'll go to the last one. Cut 3, show that with the space bar. Looking good. We will hold Control. Yeah, looks like we got everything. And shape binder, hide that with our space bar. So we've got all these imported shape binders into our body, and we know that they're in our right body because they fall under this caret of body. So as long as they're under this caret, we can work with them in the part design workbench. So that is great. All right, so let's talk about these. So we have our shape binders that define a pretty good 3D path. Let's talk about actually getting our runners now. Let's highlight this face and create a sketch. And let's sketch out the diameters that we want our runners. I'm not going to make this to any particular standard. You may want to make your runners to a specific gauge thickness if you're serious about making a manifold, maybe gauge thickness or something. I'll probably just end up making these way too thick for my example. The R key seems to be throwing me off, so I'll just add a diameter using the button. Let's go with 45 millimeters OD. These are going to be very thick pipes. So as it is, if this is made of metal, will be a very heavy header, probably too heavy to be practical, but I'm making this up as I go along again. So that's just what happens when you make stuff up. So we're going to say additive pipe. We're going to go to this object and click it, and there's our path. There's our runner. We're going to say OK. That looks like a pretty good runner. One of the things, though, is that, of course, when we intersect paths, this might be a slightly approximated radius when they come together. So that's something to be aware of as we move forward and make this. We'll grab a sketch there. Import this edge, and we'll do the same thing. Again, if you're astute, you'll probably want to add certain constraints or relations in. With this sketch over here for the OD, right, you may want to do something like import. There we go, import this edge, and then go equal, right? So then when you change geometry on here, this will automatically update and so on, right? So you can have the right design intent. So if you're interested in having good design intent, which is best practice, then do that. I'm just kind of rushing through this, so I'm probably not going to be that focused on design intent, but I actually want an additive pipe instead of a subtractive pipe. So let's figure that out here. Highlight this. Additive pipe, when I accidentally click subtractive pipe, we're going to select here and say object. And there's our next sweep path, right? Making the headers. It's great. We'll go here. Again, remember to follow best guidelines for design intent. Especially if you're making anything for real, we're going to say E for equal. We'll give this a diameter of, in my case, 45. We'll close. And let's do an additive sweep. We're going to select this object. And OK. And there's our next runner, right? And so the way that I made this is I tried to make this the most shallow angle, this a sharper angle going in, this going away from the source, and this going even more dramatically away from the source as a way to be able to tune it to be equal length. Now, I haven't actually measured these runners to try to get them to equal length, but that's something a little bit more of how an equal length would be, right? You try to take up more and more space as you go. Let's go here. We'll import this edge and do the exact same thing all over again. And say E for equal. Give this a diameter of 45. Close that. Select our path. So we can always add bolt holes or little flares or little cutouts to take weight away if we wish. I'm going to skip straight to working on this. I'm going to sketch on this plane here. And let's reduce our length now that we can kind of visualize what's going on. Fully constrain that, right? It's best practice. I am just doing this in the interest of speed because I've already been at it for over a half an hour. And I still have a little bit to go. So in the interest of speed, we're just going to look at it as it is. Let's go with, how much length do I want to take out? 1300. Let's do 1300. Let's go. We'll go with pocket. We're going to say 1300. Okay. And that reduces the length of our pipes to a little bit more of a reasonably length header. And then we want to, let's start working on a collector tube. And this is where it gets probably a little bit tedious. And this is also why I want to put chapters in the timeline so people can skip through this as they please. I'm going to import all 4 of these pipes. So we've imported these. Let's add an arc there. All right, so we're adding 4 arcs. These are going to be kind of complicated sketches in the sense that there's going to be a lot of constraints and relations. All right, so I'll make this E for equal, and we'll make sure that our arc center and the circle center both are on the same point. And the next thing I'd like to do is, let's go with the 3-point arc now, and end and rim point. And we're going to say T, T, and I'm going to turn that off because I'm going to be seeing this a lot. So I made these tangent. T and T. T and T. Tangent. Good. Let's make all of these arcs E for equal radius. And then let's go R. I didn't mess up my screen that time. And let's give this a radius of maybe 20. So that worked. The next thing, let me import one edge inside of this runner, which again looks like it's very heavy. My back is hurting just looking at it. We're going to say E for equal. We're going to add 3 more circles. All of which we'll set equal to the original circle. Close that. We'll give that a distance of 10. I like that. Alright, so there we have like this end cap of something that would resemble a collector tube, but are we done? Oh, no, of course not. So next thing, we'll want to do a loft. And we'll loft out our collector tube. So we'll create a sketch on this face. And I want to import all these outside edges. Okay, well that one's circular one, that still works. And let's do all these inside edges too. Alright, if that really bothers you though, I know someone is probably like my wife and would be bothered by that, then I'll just import that edge. Alright. Still with my rim point arcs. In the interest of speed, I'm just going to stay on my arc tool and make these all slightly different. Alright, so we've got these all drawn. Now let's select vertical and just make sure that these points are vertical, which really technically merges them, but that way you don't have partially redundance, or at least not as many. I'm going to say E for equal and get all of these guys to be equal. Great. Is this guy equal? Let's see. Oh, that's why. We'll just get these points back together. And there we go. So we are fully constrained. Now, let's go back to our center point arcs and do the same thing as before, just on the inside. And this will be our lofted collector tube profile that you could probably stamp or make out of another manufacturing method if you wish. Yeah. This guy. Yep, okay, looking good. Just making sure that these are as constrained as I want them to be so far. I'm going to again add some intermediate arcs. In fact, you know what? Why don't I start on the center point? That is an easy way to get everything geometrically well balanced. So there we go. We'll go here onto there. Just combining our center points. That looks pretty good. We'll make sure that we are T for tangent there. It's probably redundant to put a tangent here. It looks like it is. Same here. Oh no, that one is needed. So it looks like we'll just put a tangent on one side of each of these. And we're fully defined. So we'll close that. Next thing, Let's make a plane. So I'll highlight this face and we'll say plane. And then we'll move our plane out. We'll do something like in the Z direction, 120 millimeters. Maybe I'll take it down to 100. And there's our plane. So we'll create a sketch on our datum plane. Also head on over to model and I'll hide the datum plane with the spacebar so we got a little bit more of a clear view. Let me import these holes. That might be enough. What I'll do is make a circle. And we'll use the S key to choose point, point, and point. And that way our circle stays in the middle, and as you can tell, we can intersect these 3 points all at the same time because we are centered. So let's give this a diameter of, how about 86? And then we'll do another circle. And we'll give that a try and see how it goes. Now there's a big problem here because I haven't actually worked to the fullest extent of best practice. I've done a circle here and I'm planning on lofting 8 different points, right? 1 arc, 2 arcs, 3 arcs, 4 arcs, 5 arcs, 6 arcs, 7 arcs, 8 arcs. So 8 arc profiles into one single circle. Best practice would be to divide the circle up into 8 arc segments that are, evenly spaced and whatnot. But I've done a circle and that can cause problems. I'm half expecting it to. So we'll see if this works or not. I'm going to save before doing kind of a more complex loft. Now we'll do a loft. So I can find my sketch here and my sketch there, and we'll select loft. And what do you know? It worked. But if you encounter any problems, use 8 different arc segments on both of these sketches. And you can just import like a construction octagon and run arc segments between the points of the octagon. That makes it kind of easy. But it looks like my collector pipe worked even though I was breaking all the rules. So I'm just going to keep that. Now, of course, if we want to make adjustments, right, that looks like maybe kind of a long collector tube, maybe not. Depending on your preference and your design needs, maybe we'll adjust that to something like 85 millimeters on that plane. And then the plane, of course, redefines everything, we'll rebuild, and that shrinks. So we can adjust the dimensions of our plane to change the collector tube length, of course, just like anything else in parametric CAD, and it works out pretty well. So we go to this front face view. Maybe we'll make a simple flange. A 3-bolt flange, I think is pretty standard. So we will. I think I'll start by making some construction geometry. In fact, first maybe I want to make another little origin for myself. So import there and there. Make a vertical line. Yes. Vertical construction line. There we go. S key. I'm going to set these to be equal. Put a hole at the end of these, of course, switching back to deriving geometry now. And let's import this inner edge. create a circle there. I'll go back to construction, create another circle here. Now are these all, yeah, they're all equal, but not equally spaced, right? So maybe we can go to 120 degrees. I'm in the sketcher. Again, there's easier ways to do that. You can also say make 3 construction lines and set them all to be equal, and you do successfully have fewer dimensions that way. But hey, this will get us the right geometry too, but it's probably not as good of a best practice, just to let you know. We'll give this a diameter of 6.5 millimeters. We're going to say E for equal. And then the real easy part comes. We'll make a circular edge that's just concentric to this. So all of these. And we'll say, highlight all of these and say E for equal. Let's also do a vertical dimension with I, and we're going to say, let's make this 50 millimeters long, and then perhaps we can give this a radius of 7 millimeters. Looks like this one got flipped around. Let's start connecting these up. Give that a radius with the R key of 95 millimeters. We're going to say T for tangent. There. Tangent there. And we'll do the same thing going around. My arc got a little bit small there. Again, we'll select here and say E for equal. Drag this around, T for tangent. Make sure T for tangent, yep. Oh, I didn't actually get that to mate up. Let's combine those points. Boom. E for equal, and then T for tangent. And we're fully defined. We'll close that. Maybe we want a thicker flange. Maybe we'll go 6.35. 10 is just visually so nice looking on this. I'm gonna leave that at 10. But make it a realistic thickness. I've seen a lot of them being 1/8 of an inch, so maybe that's a good standard for exhaust flanges. But either way, this is as far as I'll take it. Of course, we can add little weight cutouts here, or bolt holes, or more of a wavy surface that has bolt holes in it. Whatever works for the mounting plate up here. I think this is a pretty good header. I want to say thank you so much for watching. If it was helpful, please subscribe. See you in the next one.